sinazamuye ijwi ryanjye hejuru mumenyesha iby'ibi bihe nafashe n'umwanya ndaguhamagara mumenyesha iby'isarura mubwira iby'ubwami ko bwegereje witegure umese ibishyura byawe imvura iracagwa muri ya mihana izuba.
My name is George Budagu Makoko and I'm here with Amjambo Africa news organization. It's a news organization based here in Portland, Maine. One of our goals, we thrive to educate people to embrace and celebrate diversity. And today I'm very pleased to have a special guest from different places. I have a guest from Rwanda, guest from UK, guest from Netherlands, and a guest from Portland, Maine, and also a guest from New York. This is where we are going to talk about the aftermath of the elections here in the United States. Today is November 8th, and yesterday the United States was able to finally declare the winner of the elections. And these people are very well informed. They've been following the elections here in the United States, and I'm sure they're going to give some insights as to how they've seen it and unfolding, but also they will have more opinions as to what they have to say today. And I have to say that their opinions do not represent the opinion of Amjambo Africa, but we're having this conversation just to educate the public. So I'm going to give each one of them a few minutes to introduce themselves as to what they do, their background, and then after that, I'm going to go around also and ask what they are sensing from their own community as to the elections or the current atmosphere of the elections here in the United States. So before I'm going to go quickly to each one of them, and let me start by Councillor Ali here in Portland, Maine. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the public.
Thank you, George. My name is Pius Ali. I am originally from Ghana, and I am a city councillor here in Portland, Maine. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Let me go to Dr. Shaka Mugabe from Kigali. Go ahead and introduce yourself. You can unmute and introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shaka Mugabe. I'm from Rwanda. I teach at the University of Rwanda, Center for Conflict Management. Thank you for inviting me.
Excellent. And so I'll give you also time to Madam Adele to go ahead and introduce yourself to the public.
Thank you, George. My name is Adele Kibasumba. I am a nurse practitioner, but I'm also a chairwoman for the Banyamulenge community in the United States.
Very good. And I'll go to Netherlands. Dr. Ndahinda, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Felix Ndahinda here. As you just said, I'm in the Netherlands now. I'm a researcher, teacher, and and my area has to do with law and society and governance.
Finally, the last but not the least, Alex from UK, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Alex Mvuka Ntung. I live in the UK. Currently undertaking my PhD in international conflict analysis. In a professional capacity, work as an independent consultant in the DRC, covering governance and the conflict generally.
Very good. So yesterday, which was November 7th, it was a midday here in the United States. And we finally got the final result as to who's the winner of the position of being the president of the United States. And I want just, when I got the news, it was just like I got all kinds of information from social media, and I was watching different outlets and people on the street and shouting for joy. And I'm sure there are others who are not shouting because, they lost the elections. But Councillor Ali, what was the atmosphere yesterday and until now here in Portland? Could you just tell us what you saw, what you sensed around you, and after the elections, after the result of the elections?
Well, I think people have been sitting on the urge since the night that the elections were closed, because it was in 1 minute you hear that, oh yeah, Biden is going to make it, and then you hear, oh no, we have to recount. So people were sitting on an edge, and this noon I think I was on a call with you and another person when it was called. My phone will not stop ringing, and I went out for a walk, and I realized that not known to me, there was a big party on the streets. People were out on the street with American flags and cars. Traffic was building up. Everyone was excited. And there is a trail here in downtown that I do walk at least 3 times a week. It is interesting that the people that I walk into today or yesterday, because it's 1 a.m. now, had a view. When you see the way they look and the way they are excited, the way they respond to you to let you know that they are also walking around, it was different. For me, being an immigrant, being a Black man, being a Muslim, I think, and being someone who is elected when issues comes up, I'm one of the ones that will have to speak for the communities that belong to all these 3 identities that I mentioned. It felt as if a very heavy weight have been lifted off my shoulders. And I didn't even know that that weight existed, because for the past 4 years, that is what I have to deal with. So it's become part of a normal me, waking up and just waiting for what crazy things I will see in the press about any of these identities that I represent and beyond, and everyone else that live in my community and humanity. So
Yes.
that's how it was. Actually, as soon as I think the party has been going on until about 2 or 3 hours ago. People were still on the street having partying and celebrating.
Yes.
If a dictator have just been toppled.
So Dr. Shaka Mugabe from Kigali. So I know people in Africa and Rwanda, I'm sure they've been following the elections here in the United States. And yesterday, or even now, what did you see after the declaration of the winner of the elections here in the United States? On the street of Kigali or in social media, what were you sensing around?
Thank you very much, George. I didn't see people with flags the way my other colleague did in the USA. And I don't have authoritative numbers of how people are concerned about Trump's presidency, and particularly the elections, when elections were going on, particularly the counting of votes. But through social media and discussions with people, I realized people were very concerned by Trump presidents, particularly his behavior during the elections, the actual elections, including children. I couldn't know my kids were that aware about what was going on in the USA.
Yeah.
But they kept coming to me asking questions. Who is gonna win? What is going on? You know, they are very interested in sport than they are in politics. But for the 2 last days, they're very much interested in American politics, which surprised me. So it seems people are very happy after the official confirmation of Biden. And the problem has less to do with political programs, political orientation, but it has to do with behaviors of the 2 people that were competing. Thank you.
Adele, New York, how was it today? How was it yesterday and now? What did you see around? What did you hear, if anything?
Thank you, George. I mean, like I was saying, New York is a very blue state. It's a very democratic state. And we always vote overwhelmingly Democratic. And we are the first to resist the Trump presidency. You see that the resistance come from like New York, and then it spreads. So you can imagine when the elections were called for Biden, immediately people were celebrating in different parks, in Brooklyn, in Manhattan, also other cities around the New York State. People were just so happy and relieved that we don't have to live under the presidency of Trump for another 4 years.
Yes.
And again, people are very vocal.
Yeah.
Because majority of people again vote Democratic, and so they're very vocal in expressing their happiness and their joy in having having Joe Biden as the next president. So which something I don't really see that when I go to other states. People vote and they just keep it to themselves and they don't say who they vote for. But here, people will let you know.
People are open. It's in New York. They don't sleep.
Yeah.
They talk loud.
And if you walk around the neighborhood and you see like a Trump sign, or if someone expresses, their admiration for Trump, they are automatically looked at as
Yeah, very good. Let me go to UK. Alex, how was it? How was it yesterday and even now?
Yeah, UK, I'm sure you probably know, in British ways, we are less expressive of emotions, whether negative or positive. But I'm very sure that, seeing from my own social network, it has been overwhelming in terms of really relief. Trump, for many people I know, was not representatives of values we want to see in leadership. So it's been exactly as Dr. Ajay mentioned, among children especially. You hear a lot. They were very, very interested in what's going on, what's going to be the outcome of the elections. That is incredible. It does show that politics matter to children and young people too. Yeah.
Absolutely. And how about Netherlands, Dr. Dahinda? How was it yesterday and even now? What are you sensing around the community?
The reaction is pretty much like others said. I mean, the Netherlands prides itself to be one of the most liberal countries in the world. So it's not a surprise that probably everyone in the Netherlands, even the conservatives, most likely would more, except probably the fringe, would more vote Democratic already in terms of values than anything else. In that, so even talking as an immigrant here, and probably someone who can empathize with minorities who have suffered through domestic and international policies adopted by Trump. I can also speak probably from the perspective of Europe in general, which was pretty much dominantly, of course, they have also differences.
I'll get into the details of the policies, and that's probably...
Exactly, precisely. So much of it was really pretty much jubilation, yes.
That's a good segue. So we can now, we're just talking about the atmosphere and what people are saying around and the joy and happiness around. But what is it really that made people, what are you thinking about the Trump policies and, domestically and internationally? And in a few minutes, if you can, what in the last 4 years of Trump, what did you see in terms of policies that you did not like or you did not like, and what make the impact into the community that you live in? And I know some of you who are here in USA can talk vividly about the policy, the domestic policies, but also if anybody knows about the international policies that causes people to not embrace Trump era. And if we can go quickly, and let me start by Dr. Shaka Mugabe in Rwanda, just internationally wise. What do you think about Trump era?
Thank you very much. I'm not knowledgeable about the domestic politics of policies of Trump. I will focus on his international policy.
Yes.
If any, because if you consider his slogan, America First, in terms of practice, it became, if I'm not mistaken, America only, because he completely disconnected the USA from the rest of, at least from Africa, and he didn't make any kind of secret around that. He was very vocal about his international policies. I think this is what we refer to like a non-interventionist, but we were not expecting him to be interventionist, but at least to keep the minimum contact and minimum conversation. And if there were many pressing issues internally, we're expecting him at least to express the interest to Africa, which seemed to be not the case, at least from this perspective, the African perspective. So I can just summarize this in few words, that his international policy was, if not catastrophic, but it was completely non-interested in the rest of the world, particularly Africa. And if I look at other areas, including China, for instance, it has been a struggle, a kind of latent conflicts, and sometimes open conflict, crisis between the two superpowers. I just say that there was nothing interesting from his administration in terms of African foreign policy of the USA.
Alex from UK. So what do you have to say about the Trump era? And
maybe three things. Firstly, really his hostile immigration policy. He came to power a few months after the Brexit. Really, his immigration policy has reinforced a rise in nationalism across the Western world, I would say. So as you probably followed events over here, Brexit was very much influenced by anti-migrants sentiment and rhetorics, which he vocally supported and campaigned for. So his era really, politics, public opinion, and media have toughened, if I can say that, and hardened views against immigration, and especially great support to far right groups. Also, as part of that, somehow he has normalized such attitudes against people from other countries coming to the global north, and politicians in Europe, in the UK especially, agreed with one another to express a really harder response to what has become known as a refugee crisis in Europe. As you may remember, during the Syrian refugee movement, Trump really lacked a clear view on how they can respond to that issue, and there was it became a clear vacuum of leadership between Europe and America to respond to such a situation. And to finish, the other side of his leadership has been really dominated by lack of humanity values, normalizing racist and misogynist views and languages, normalizing lies in politics, as Obama often say, we can get away with being political and not saying things straight away, in a straightforward way. But lying is something that has dominated his leadership. And again, really kind of supporting what Dr. Ajay mentioned, his idea of American first, I can extend to what Dr. Ajay mentioned. His idea of American first is actually white first and wealthy first, and denying science-based evidence. That was a serious remark.
So, Dr. Ndahinda, what is your view about that, the Trump era, and how did it play out internationally?
Thanks a lot. I had started already. Probably I was carried on in my first intervention
Yes,
already.
so now you can finish it out.
You could get the feel.
Yes.
Fully agree with those who talked first, but I see it in two kind of areas.
Yes.
One is indeed what is known always. I mean, America remains still the big number one superpower, and superpowers, what they do is that they claim the space which they claim. You know, it's not a democratic space. They claim it, and they engage on different interventions, good or bad, good or bad. And Trump basically tended to emphasize the latter, the bad rather than the good. So we believe that superpowers can do some good when they want to, and he emphasized more the negative. And that he did through what Ajay described also, but more broadly, the politics of negative difference and nativist, basically, what I would call nativist kind of politics. You know, we Americans were first, and Alex touched on it, and that's the third, is the right wing politics is a global phenomenon. It's not only an American phenomenon. So he championed right-wing politics of division and hate, and basically which very much galvanized global right-wing white politics.
Yes.
Global right-wing politics. In your country, you talk about neo-Nazis. You have to remember that the original Nazis are Europeans. So, and we still have quite a lot of neo-Nazi groups across Europe. And in Trump, they had a moral leader and a powerful one and a global one. So with the might of carrying the politics they have always championed, both in their countries or in their networks. You had networks, I mean, guys like Stephen Bannon who came here in Europe and so on. So there was already that he, not only within the US, with all what others can talk about within your own framework in the US, but also extremist groups in countries like the Netherlands and so on, and Europe, Germany, they saw in Trump a leader. And finally, of course, for us here in the Netherlands, we took it very personal that he took sanctions against the people like the prosecutors of the ICC and so on. So he was just that kind of guy who would do such a thing. So people who go after some bad guys with whatever disagreement many of us may have, also including with that court, he was the first to take such a decision, like to take sanctions against like an international criminal prosecutor.
Very good. So let Adele, probably you are here, you can even talk more about the real policies that affected the people that you know in the communities. Do you have any that you can tell, you can share with the public? And then after that, I'll go to Councillor Ali. And if you can briefly, things that you know, people you've sat with and worked with who complaining about the policies that that were made and impacting their daily lives.
Well, I think the complaint that you hear around people that I work with, or just generally, is his character, is his impulse to just divide, inflame, hate, and division, is the lack of predictability in his governing. He governs by Twitter. A lot of things are, what he plans to do. He just fires a Twitter storm, and then the next thing you know, then it goes into effect. So it's that kind of recklessness that people just cannot stand about him. But policy-wise, I think one has to do with immigration, specifically for Africans. So he had the Muslim ban. He also had basically targeting Muslim countries that, if you come from a Muslim country and you were trying to get your parents to join you, or you had a spouse, because they come from that country, they can no longer come. But also for the African, mostly because I think there was only one country that went into the Muslim ban. But in Obama era, Obama had accepted, I think, 56,000 refugees that he had given priorities to come to the US. And Congo was the #1 priority because of all the ongoing crises that have been going on in Congo. And there were other countries, but I have to say Congo because I come from there, and I'm one of those refugees that benefited from the resettlement agencies that America has put forward. And so when Trump came, he cut down the numbers of refugees that could legally come to the United States. And I have to say, my sister works in a resettlement agency, and they had to close down their agency because they laid off workers. Majority of them had to basically find jobs, and I'm saying that's like January when Trump started. It was maybe 2 months after he was sworn in. They closed down the agencies because for the whole year they were just expecting 5 refugees coming in.
Yes.
Usually they have cases, and after
Thousands
cases,
of people, yeah.
exactly. So that really not only impacted people overseas, but also, all these agencies that welcome hundreds and hundreds of refugees that come, in America every month. But one thing I have to say, he closed down on people that have no other places to go. Their countries are, at war, and he cut down the aid that actually helps them while they're still in their own countries. He cut down the aid to the UN. So you don't want to take them in, and you don't want to help them where they are. Like, it just, I don't understand where he's going with this, and it was very, very detrimental to refugees. So
Thank you. Yeah. So Dr. I'm sorry, Councillor Ali, go ahead and probably you have more to share since you're already in the political arena yourself. So what did you see the policies that you've seen implemented by the Trump era that you were seeing impacting people in the community that you know?
Yeah, I think Adel have shared a lot of them. The Muslim ban, the travel ban. Recently, he also tried to pass a law that will make it illegal for students who are coming from foreign countries to come to school here. And in the middle of the pandemic, he asked people to leave and go back where they come from because the education, there's no school for them to go to. There is a program that is called CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, that helps communities, including old people who live in retirement home. There's a program called Meals on Wheel, where all over the country, elected officials and community leaders will sit in these cars, traveling around, bringing food to old people who live by themselves. This guy cut that. There is a Pell Grant, which helps poor people to go to college. When you have a Pell Grant, it helps you pay for college education. Is expensive in the US. Even if you have scholarship, you need some certain set of support, and Pell Grant is one of them. It allows you to have a job within the university that you go to, so that you don't have to go and work and look for money. So you can work in the library and get some sort of like stipend working in the library. He cut that, and that impacts poor people. And he knows that that is what he's doing. We have a group of immigrants that were brought here by their parents. They didn't have a choice in coming here. They were called the dreamers. He tried hard to make it practically impossible for them not to become Americans. Actually, he tried to arrest some of them and send them back to a country that they never know because their parents and families brought them here. He attacked the Obamacare that will have helped a lot of poor people who can't afford to make healthcare affordable. He reversed a lot of, he wanted to eliminate it completely. Even though he was not successful, he stripped it of a lot of things that make it easy for people to get, how do you call it, health benefits. He threatened to build a wall. I mean, historically, we know that the moment you build a wall around your country, you are walling yourselves in, where you will not be able to engage the outside world and learn from people and let people to all. He threatened to change our immigration policy to a point-based system, which will favor only countries that have wealthy white people to come to America. He tried to limit in the analogy that I give is America is a big tent with all of us under that tent as one family. he tried to change people who are allowed to sit under that tent. He wants to have only people that look like him and only people who are as wealthy as he is. He attacked the LGBTQ community by taking away funds that supports women and support them. The list goes on and on and on of some of the domestic policies that he had passed, which is very harmful to our communities, not just our communities as immigrants or minorities, but also against humanity and marginalized communities in America.
So
I just have to add one more, is the separation of children at the border. Children as young as 4 years old, separated from their mothers. That was very inhumane, and I don't think people forgot that when they were voting.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's been now 4 years, 4 good years. And I know we're saying about the bad policies. Is there anything at all? Because anything that you can say, positively say about him, anything that he's done positively for the whole year, 4 years that he's been in power. Do you have anything positive you can say about him?
I think, the stimulus package that he gave, people were very happy. The COVID stimulus, people were very happy. I mean, they were happy because they really needed it. A lot of people were furloughed, they were laid off from their job, they lost their insurances, health insurance. So that was a nice compromise that he struck with the Congress to help people. In terms of the tax bill that he passed, I don't really know if the middle class. I don't think he helped the middle class, but you can say that's a success, but I don't think it helped the middle class because people saw their tax return lower from the previous years. But other people who have money would find that, to be a good thing.
So they talk about the economy booming before the COVID-19. Is that something positive you can say that due to his effort and a businessman, that the economy was able to thrive better than any other time in history?
We can go by numbers. I think Ali would be in best place to say
yes,
that.
Anybody who can comment
the
about
numbers that the government puts out. Yes, the economy was doing well, and I think it goes by states. Some states are doing well, and some others were not doing so great. Personally,
Okay, I get it. So
can I just
positive? It's an overview. So you're open to say anything that you've seen positively about him, or if there's anything that's okay.
I think I can say he's being inconsistent. Really doesn't counsel anything is done really positive. For example, I love that he shook the boat of some of our alliances, beginning, trying to kind of reform them. For example, with the NATO, trying to see, how each country contributed to it, without knowing actually the whole context of it. And then, of course, he's being inconsistent. That sort of a reform did not really necessarily translate into a positive outcome. He became a bad partner, a potential good partner, a potential someone who could be changer, but that's what I can say.
Something.
Go ahead, Dr. Ajay.
Yes, please. At least him, compared to many politicians, he could speak his mind. And,
true.
And he could know what he thinks.
Yes.
Or he had to say about a given country, a given policy,
yes.
a given issue. And I think he was completely different from many politicians we're used to. Maybe that one.
I have another maybe, George.
Yes, go ahead.
I mean, I've followed quite actually these discussions in some networks with researchers, academics actually from the global south, who think that probably Trump was something good in terms of some negative interventions of the US in the global south. So his America First had its downsides, many of them, but some believed and I share part of that, that
Mhm.
America is seen, whoever is the president, somehow as that global superpower. I said it earlier,
Yes.
but which does intervene quite a lot, sometimes in a good way, and many times not. And it's
Okay.
seen, being a superpower is seen as a bully in many places.
Exactly.
Many of us probably tend to be fans of Obama and so on, but we know also that many know that Obama is the person who headed the intervention in Libya, that many of us probably will find that as not having been a very good idea by NATO. So
Exactly.
that being said, Trump's America first, whatever happens in the world is none of my business, has its downsides, but there is many who believe also it has a good side of not being the bully going around and telling people all over the world what to do.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think his non-intervention policy of saying that, listen, I'm not going to go out and kill some people because they're fighting and blah, blah, blah. I think that was, to some extent, it took away. But when you are a leader, when you want to lead a group of people, whether it is nations or individuals,
Yes.
the stick and carrot kind of like policy, like there needs to be a time where you need to straighten people because you are the leader, whether you lead in front or from behind. And that comes in so many ways. I don't agree with dropping bombs on people because we don't agree with them, but also to completely walk away and say that I don't want to do anything about what is happening in the world. For me, that was not okay. He did a great job by, I think he did some good work by providing jobs. He created, his administration made it easy for businesses to create some jobs.
Yes.
The only thing that is not okay is that these jobs are not like the kind of jobs that will uplift people out of poverty, and we know what poverty means in this country. There are data that shows that we have a lowest unemployment during his presidency, and that is debatable because you will have people that will argue that he benefited from some of Obama's policies. Because Obama was there for 8 years. Obama inherited one of the longest wars economy, and then he worked hard to change it. Just when the Democrats were going to benefit, we had Mr. Trump, and so he benefited from some of the work that was put together by a Democratic administration. But it happened under his watch, so he did some good work there.
Very good. So we are going to move very quickly now to the next questions, a series of questions. And the next one is about, what do you think about the 2020 election process here in the United States? Quickly, and I know you were watching from different places. What was in your mind when you're seeing the whole process unfolding? And so I can start with Councillor Ali, and then we'll go around Rwanda and Netherlands and UK and then New York.
I think the current president, I think Trump's policies, both local and international, did and the way he behaved as the president, attacking individuals, racism, anti almost everything that makes America what America is, made people who do not necessarily participate in the political system got all hyped and wanted to get rid of his administration. I think he had changed the political landscape of this country he's changed it, but it's going to continue for a long time. So he got more people angry. He got more people wanting to get rid of his, how do we call it, his administration. He also got people who support his ideas, all wanting to keep him. So he had increased the number of Americans who are interested in the political process. I think more minorities are running for office like never before.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, but because more people are running for office, they come along with their communities and they got them to vote. For example, Stacey Abrams in Georgia, who ran for governor, and when the election was stolen from her, what she did was she took all the energy that she's created and registered about 800,000 people. And there are many people all over the country who have done that. Here locally, some of our immigrant and migrant leaders went all over to register more people and get more people. We made so many phone calls to get people to go out and vote. Yes. Because sometimes the American politics and politics all over the world is about personal interest. So if your interest is being threatened, you will do all you can to save that. And the only way that you can save that is going out to vote for people who have shared values, who will protect that interest that you have. And he made it possible for more people to go out and vote. So
the reason why, like this election, as I was just reading, 161 million participated in these elections. It's incredibly like high, rate in terms of participation in elections than any other time in history. It's amazing. So, Dr. Shaka Mugabe, what did you follow when you're in Rwanda, and how was this election 2020 different from other elections that you've probably followed, if you've done that in the past?
Of course, I did. A number of lessons indeed, but the most important one is that based on the attitudes and the behavior of the sitting president, the most important lesson was that he was trying to take away the legitimacy for America to tell other people what democracy is and how it should be played. And it was very surprising to me for a sitting president to claim that votes were being manipulated and that illegal and illegal vote concepts and all these kind of non-evidenced claims, if I consider what I was following in different media. So he also showed us an image of two people, and he helped very much the Democrat candidate to display this kind of presidential image, because he was calling for calmness, where the others was claiming the victory, even when the vote were not counted.
So, for somebody, someone from Rwanda, how do you know if the claims that he's making are no evidence or not? It's just like you follow both sides and you hear what other people are saying, or you just think it's because he already normally claims things that are not real, and you think is making the same allegations?
No, because I was following different media sources and the courts, because even some Republicans were saying we are ashamed by what he's saying because there is no evidence supporting what he's saying. So I think they had no interest not to support their own president because they are from the same political party.
Yes.
And sincerely speaking, I realized that we shouldn't be, from this perspective, African perspective, we shouldn't be given lessons that here is how democracy looks like. You should be following these games, elections, and all these things that we receive from the West. Yes. So Trump was trying to tell Africans that we have nothing to offer. It was a poor game from a perspective, but then Biden was doing very well with a very calm attitude and the calls for peaceful elections and so forth. Two different images. Thank you.
Very good. So, Dr. Dahinda in Netherlands, how did you follow the current 2020 elections here in the US, and how was they different from the other ones you've experienced in the past?
Generally, I've always been interested in global politics, and so I think I have since probably Bush Senior, I have somehow always followed what is going on in the US elections and stuff. So I think the key word here is decency and truth. I find it fascinating. Decency in the sense that in many Western elections, people disagree. They make quite fierce competition. In the US, even more than in Europe, attacks can be quite very personal between candidates. I think that is constant in US kind of elections. But that being said, I think the level of going personal and has been to another level. That was my perception, maybe not documented. And second, I think with everything Trump. I think over the, I know that there have been some media making a tally of his lies and half truth and so on. I think Washington Post has a book in 2000 about the number, how many dozens of thousands. So with that in mind, I think that was what I found fascinating. I found fascinating the fact that much of his platform was actually based on things which are not real, but still he manages to get 71 million people who vote for him.
Yes.
So that to me was quite one. I read quite what populism can do, and we have lessons about that in Germany several decades back, and many other contexts. So populism, how much it has power. Second, I was puzzled as someone who follows European kind of politics, and the level of education of the average voter in Europe, who tends to be quite very much issue fact-based kind of voter, the average, I mean. I was puzzled how much a big chunk of US electorate can still be very manipulated. I mean, I shared, I think, a video of a lady who happens, I understand, to be a Trump advisor, summoning angels from Africa to go and help resolve the election in favor of Trump. And apparently that is a big time televangelist. I'm puzzled. I mean, I know we still have big population, uneducated population back home, and you can understand how they can easily be manipulated for lack of education. I'm puzzled at how there are so much similarities in the US, in the US election, when you have that big number. I found it amazing, puzzling.
Adele, you've seen so many elections throughout the years you've lived here in the USA. How was 2020 different from others?
Yeah, it was very different, but I think the reason why we had such a high turnout is because we voted differently this time. We didn't have early voting in the past elections, and we didn't vote by mail unless you're doing an absentee ballot if you're traveling and then you want to vote where you are. So with COVID, one of the blessing of it is that a lot of states allowed early voting. They also mailed ballots to people. Like Nevada, they just mailed ballots to everybody. And if you thought you don't want to go line up because some places the lines were so long, you have to wait for hours and hours. And so you just request a mail-in ballot, and so a lot of people were able to vote that way. So I think that's why it drove up the numbers of people who voted, and then also the counting, also that impacted the that's why we had such a long delays with counting of voter of results. You had usually by midnight the day of election we know who's the winner, or maybe the next morning. But this time it just went on and on because they had to count all these mail ballots, and that's why it took so long. And I think with Trump, he's so used to push conspiracies, and a lot of people started believing it because it was taking too long. They just couldn't believe where all these votes were coming. Like for Pennsylvania, the votes just kept coming because a lot of Democrats voted by mail. And so when the mail were, when the results were coming back, they were in favor of Joe Biden, and he couldn't believe how he was lagging behind. Not only there in Georgia as well, same thing. So it was great, and I hope next elections they allow the same access. Usually, yes, we do have this right to vote, but the voting process was very restrictive in the past. I hope that in the following elections they give the same access to people to be able to vote easily, whether by mail or early voting. That was really good, and that's what brought victory.
Alex, how did you see 2020 elections here in the US different from the previous ones that you've experienced or followed?
So I just wanted to add something, if it's okay.
Yeah.
I just have to clear my city and my state. We in Maine already have this process. Every election, you can either vote by how do we call it, absentee ballot,
Yeah.
or you can actually go to the election on the election day, and you can register to vote here in Maine. And
Yes.
we have early voting where you can vote from the 1st of October all the way until the Thursday before election day. This year we added Friday, and then we also added weekends. And as Adele said, I hope that in the near future this will continue because it will increase participation.
Participation. No?
Yeah, and
That's so true. Absolutely. So, Alex, how did you see it? 2020.
Of course, as a friend has said, we do follow global politics, and USA is one of them. That's really of a huge interest here in the UK. I think there's something really similar to 2016 elections with Secretary Hillary Clinton, where polls they got it wrong.
Yeah.
I think something which I've been mentioning to friends really from the experience of Brexit. It is important to know that it is unpopular to show publicly that you're supporting Trump, and therefore surveys will get it wrong.
Yes.
And it was by surprise to start seeing how it is changing later, but we all were biting our nails in terms of, and it shouldn't be, like Dr. Ndahinda mentioned, it was expected to be a easy win. But you know, you start seeing something quite different. And something else which really was remarkable are the tensions and really concerned with possible new American civil war, and seeing some kind of armed groups, the type of image you see with militias in the DRC, with Mai Mai. and that is incredibly barbaric, image you're seeing in American politics. But in contrast to that, we saw hopes and determinations across the whole country, especially through some news channels, showing that expressive nature of what should be American values.
Very good. We're heading to the end, and I'm going to just go quickly now to the next couple questions before we conclude. And one of them is what you hope for the new like a new administration coming up next year for Biden and Joe Biden and Senator Harris. What is that you're hoping they can do? They can shift in very few minutes. Each one of you can go, depending with the order. If anyone want to chime in, just what are you hoping now, since you've seen 4 years of Trump and now there's a new administration coming up next year? What is that you hoping from the new administration?
Well, I want to see a contrast from the way they should govern. I want to see a clear and a consistent plan of all fronts, how they deal with COVID. I worked when the COVID hit New York, and we lost a lot of people, and the way we were not prepared, and we were not given guidance. It was changing hour by hour, and I just couldn't believe that we are in the United States, and still to this day, COVID is still not under control, and we still have like record numbers of cases. So I really hope that when Joe Biden comes and Kamala Harris, I hope that we have a clear and a consistent plan that we're all going to follow, and we can get things under control. I hope for a humane immigrant policies. I hope for consistent and foreign policies that really go after bad guys. Because
very good.
Trump, I see bad guys back home, especially getting away with it because he's not really interested.
So, Councillor Ali, what are you hoping for the new administration coming up?
A reversal of all the bad policies that he passed. I hope that the first 100 days will see them reversing 100 bad policies, both domestic and foreign. I also know, being someone who has spent a large part of my work here in the U.S. around racial equity, around poverty, around police brutality, around many other things that uplift people from poverty and oppression. I know that it's not going to change overnight. I'm still ready to, even though I'm a Democrat, I'm still ready to continue the fight, even with a Democratic president in the White House. So I want to see maybe an easier opponent, somebody who would listen, who would remain to my request for change. I want to see a partner who will work with me to make the necessary change that we need in this country and probably globally.
Very good. So, Dr. Shaka, from Rwanda, and what is that? Is there anything that you're hoping for the new administration? You know, I know for the people here in the USA, they can talk, can go on, but for you, what is that you're expecting or foreseeing for this new administration coming up?
Yes, we do. We do expect a lot, even if the blue wave that was expected didn't take place. I don't know whether he will be free to implement his foreign policy, given that I don't know whether this has changed. There was no majority in the Senate, and as we know, the president governs in collaboration with the Senate. But at least I know that we're going to see less open crisis with China, more respectful partnership, and dignified relations with Africa, more human immigration policy, and possibly repair of some relations with these Muslim countries, particularly because they're very much injured by the previous administration.
That's right. And Alex from UK, what is that you're thinking of or expecting from the new administration?
I think there is, you probably have seen one of his famous speech against apartheid regime. He's really demonstrated a character of a politician that cannot stand or display neutrality in a situation of injustice. I really would want to see such a character, displayed in his administration, especially in terms of some of the places affected by war. For example, in the DRC, where there's such a kind of apartheid system, discriminating certain groups of people simply because of who they are. I would want to see that he meant it, and he lived those values. And something really which is also important in terms of our domestic policy is really moving from rhetorics to address the deep-rooted socioeconomic issues and the structural racism in the American system. And for foreign policy, I think personally working in the DRC and the political economy aspect, and I see a empty seat of American businesses to invest in the DRC. Many big powers are worried about China taking over, but actually they're not doing something about it. You really have to navigate the system of Africa rather than actually coming with a stick that you must do this before we do business with you. America need to come forward rather than being a bully in terms of military and security obsession, security agenda.
Very good. Dr. Ndahinda, so what are you hoping or expecting from the new administration coming up?
Oh, I mean, again, I trust that those in US can speak more eloquently and more authoritatively on domestic issues. But for us, at least outside the US, we are more interested in what the US projects outside the US. And I guess Trump did break quite a number of what some would believe that is to be positive relations for a stable, more peaceful kind of global environment. Consider, for example, the things around climate. Many of us believe at least that's something necessary. Action on climate, something that is needed, is necessary. So we would hope the new administration at least to engage back, I think that would be the word, to engage back with the rest of the world, to be it Africa, Europe, China for that matter, Cuba, Iran, those kind of things. And that kind of engagement would contribute probably to less conflict. And whether we want it or not, whether the conflict happens in Iran or not, someone who is in Rwanda or in Eastern Congo is always affected somehow or not, in one way or another, if only probably price of oil and those kind of things. So we hope there is more engagement. And I think it's not only a hope, we trust that there will be less kind of politics based on division and on hate. Trump did give quite a lot of time and space on that. We want international relations, which we know the US will be still US centric and sometimes be in conflict with other countries and defend US centric, collide with other countries probably that we favor, but we want at least some decent politics which are based on some kind of rationality.
Very good. So this question goes to Adele. So, and this is particular for Senator Kamala Harris. And what do you think about getting a vice president female for the first time in the U.S.? Did you think of anything? And now I know. What did you think? Or if anybody can comment about now the U.S. has the vice president female.
I mean, it's really.
But also she's also an immigrant, so.
Yes,
so
it was amazing. I think more people are celebrating, not only for like Joe Biden, but mostly because of Kamala Harris. The person that she is, the things that she's able to accomplish. She has done a lot of things in California. She was a senator. She's only I think the second woman in U.S. Senate, and now she's the vice president. And she's a daughter of an immigrant. So I see myself in her because she was really young. I think she was born here to a mother of an immigrant, just like myself. And so to see her rising up to be at the White House, it makes us all proud, and it makes us see that anything is possible. Yes. In America, like she said, it's a land of opportunity. It's a land of possibility. If we have the ambition to do it, we can go far. So it's a proud moment, and I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that she's going to be any different. She's going to be led by the values that she was raised with, the culture, the experience that she was raised with as an immigrant, and she's going to bring that to the White House and do things that really are inclusive and that represent all of us. So it's a great day. I was celebrating for Joe Biden. I'm happy, but mostly for Kamala Harris.
Excellent. So I think we are concluding right now, and I know it's very late for some here in the US, and it's early in the morning for others in Europe and Africa. And I must tell you, the reason why we started Amjambo Africa back in 2018, it was just to make sure that every voice is being heard, every expertise and skills from the immigrant population or even from people in Africa are being shared with the public. And I will tell you really a joke story that I heard from one of my favorite journalists from BBC who passed away, and he's from Ghana. It's Komla Dumont. I think Councillor Ali, you probably remember him. He was making a TED talk, and and then finally he made the joke and said, it's a very disappointing that the expert on the African continent are people who are sitting in London, New York, and Netherlands, everywhere. but we never heard the expert from our own continent. And when we started Amjambo Africa, we're just trying to make sure that every story is told. And I'm glad I'm sitting with people who have academia and people who've done different things who can really comment on the current issues that we have here, or the current elections that we're having here in the US. But finally, I'm going to give a chance to everyone who's here to say a word. It could be a word of encouragement or something they have in your mind they would like to share with the public, and before we conclude. But again, I really thank you for your time, and I hope you're not going to hate me because I woke you up or just this very inconvenient time. So I'll go with the first, whoever wants to go first, and maybe I can just, whoever wants to go first in 1 or 2 seconds, just share with the public whatever you want to share that you have in your heart. Please go ahead. So let me go with the Councillor Ali. Go ahead, you're the first.
So what I would say is that to every American, to everybody who lives out there in the world, this election means so many things, from Kamala Harris being the first woman and the first Black woman, the first Asian woman, the first immigrant woman. It's a strong message and inspiration to a lot of women, including my daughter. But to the whole world, it's a new beginning. There's a new beginning. Let's work together. Let's push for all the necessary changes that we need to see here in America and everywhere.
A new beginning, I like that. So let me go with Adele.
Oh, well, I just want to thank you, George, for the time to really reflect what this election has been and what it could be. I'm also looking forward to everything they're going to be doing. I think I kind of have a handle of what they're going to do because of the, their experience that they bring to the White House. I'm very confident of the work they're going to be doing on behalf of all Americans and also abroad. Their policies when Joe Biden was with Obama, back 12 years ago, their policies were pretty impressive abroad, especially in Congo and the Great Lakes. So I look forward to what they're going to do.
Excellent. So looking forward for so many things with the new administration, and I think we all do, and we really want to see more changes and positively affecting our community that we cherish so much. And our guest from Rwanda, Dr. Shaka Mugabe.
Thank you very much, George. Congratulations to Americans for getting there, despite a very painful electoral process. I'm very, very happy to see a team of a man and a woman at the White House. I'm expecting her to particularly push this agenda for peace, security, women, peace and security, because I'm myself gender sensitive, and I think she can push the agenda and achieve a lot in collaboration with many other regional bodies, including the African Union and the East African community. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Excellent. So, Dr. Ndahinda, now, any word of wisdom or anything that you would like to share with the public? Or
Sure. First, thanks again for inviting me. Thanks for creating that platform. Really keep it up. Second, congratulations really to you guys, Americans, for coming back to reason, I guess I should say, because that was needed for resetting the clock. And my only hope would be that America will be, again, a good power that it can be when it wants to. I know, as I said, I'm realist on this. So I know any administration will pursue, first of all, American policies. At the global stage, we can only hope for a good actor on the global stage. And I trust that they will do that. And for us, we can only hope, outside the US, we can only hope that we'll get more of a benevolent power willing to cooperate than more of a bully, and as Trump tended to be. And that would be my hope for the coming days.
Very good. Alex, the last but not the least.
Really, I know congratulations has been given, and I support that too. A message to three of you, George, Councillor Ali, and Adele. I know your work. I really want to emphasize on the importance of voting for you guys who work with immigrant population. Maybe under some kind of a umbrella of political literacy. It is important that people vote and voice their kind of share their political will, their understanding of a change. And finally, Biden winning should really not divert us from other things going on around the world. We know there's a conflict now latent in Ethiopia, which could affect the whole continent. DRC is going through so many issues. So international politics such as this can actually take over from other things going on which matter.
Very good. You very well said, all of you. But also one thing that I want to say at the conclusion. At the same time, we are seeing people on the street shouting for joy and happiness. I think you can also have seen other people who are on the street demonstrating and claiming that there was some fraudulent elections. So what am my asking is so that we can pray for the United States, so for peace and the healing, really, because there's been so many divisions. And my prayer is that we'll not see anything that may bring about civil war that we see in any countries, because peace and democracy is very fragile, and we can lose at any time if we do not protect it. So again, I really thank you, and I wish you well. And I'm not sure if you are going back to sleep or you're going to just continue on. But for us, but I just want to thank you and have a wonderful day everywhere you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.